Eamonn Holmes, the fellow who used to be a sort of figure on breakfast TV, and then transferred to GB News, and is in the process of divorcing his wife. What's her name? I can't remember her name now. Rachel, Rebecca, begins with an R anyway. And this unshakable fixture of breakfast television has taken quite a tumble, metaphorically, professionally, and sadly physically. For decades, he was the reassuring northern brogue behind GMTV and This Morning, but lately he's become a figure almost Shakespearean in tragedy, a sort of Falstaffian shadow of his former self, a man undone not by hubris but by herniated discs, a disintegrating marriage, and now a cancelled theatre tour with ticket sales that would shame a village pantomime. The Things We Like, that was the curious title that promised Holmes and GB News sports reporter Paul Coit waxing lyrical on things Holmesian. An evening of nostalgia, opinion, and presumably mild indignation. A sort of Antiques Roadshow meets Loose Men. Or just Antiques Roadshow. Old Men. Tickets were priced at £40, not particularly cheap, but certainly not extortionate, and yet the public stayed at home. The public wasn't interested in Holmes and Holmes on tour. This isn't an attraction. The tour, scheduled to commence in Hertfordshire, never got out of first gear. The opening show was cancelled. Then quietly the entire tour seems to have been pulled. Organisers cited low sales, a term that rather underplays the existential thud of promotional silence. And to paraphrase Oscar Wilde, to cancel one show may be regarded as a misfortune. To cancel them all begins to look like a disaster, as Kemi Badenoch would call it. It's going to be a brace. And this isn't merely a professional hiccup. Holmes has been admirably open about his ongoing health challenges, a slipped disc in 2022 that required surgery and left him dependent on mobility aids. On Instagram, he says, even when the sun shines, there's pain. I understand. I fell over about 2 weeks ago. I fainted for some bizarre reason, and when I got up, it was quite painful. And it turns out I've slipped some discs in my neck. I suppose that is the thing. In fact, the doctor in the local hospital thought that I'd broken my neck. I've also torn some muscles in my shoulder. But so I understand the thing about pain, and it's frankly the sort of line that I suppose would sit neatly in a Philip Larkin poem. There's something bleakly British about the combination of physical decay and stoicism. And then there's GB News, a channel that's promised to be the home of the culture warriors, the bulldog to the BBC's Labrador, and yet it's become something closer to a Punch and Judy booth, with various people popping up like Holmes from behind a desk, and Holmes and Farage, Holmes. It sounds like an interior decorators, doesn't it? Holmes still broadcasting from Monday to Wednesday. No longer the ratings draw that he once was. Indeed, GB News recently has been beset by Ofcom investigations, presenter departures, and segments that resemble extended pub rants rather than real information. And I find this. I find this really sad, because there are people of talent in GB News. Tom, what's his name? Tom. It begins with an H. Anyway, he's the best thing in it, and I did notice that he's back on air at the moment, but for a long time he was he was doing some sort of management thing, which was a great shame. And Holmes's personal life, which has been the subject of so much public speculation. Ruth Langsford, that's the person who's divorcing him. This Loose Women presenter. They confirmed their separation in 2024 after 14 years of marriage and 27 years together. The reported cause, well, Intimate messages, it seems, with another woman, overheard, one might add, in a moment of domestic miscalculation. In an age of smartphones and open-plan living, infidelity has become decidedly analog, hasn't it? It's while Holmes moved on with a new partner, 43-year-old counsellor Katie Alexander, Langsford has taken a more measured path, still wearing her wedding ring, reportedly not ready to move on romantically, and instead focusing on freedom and rather wonderfully planning a divorce party. In all this, one can't help but feel some sympathy. Holmes was once a broadcasting heavyweight, but now he finds himself a sort of limp and adrift. Health hobbled, reputationally bruised, professionally diminished, limp. And the cancelled tour feels emblematic of his emasculation, of his professional emasculation. A public unwilling to follow him into this new terrain of stage chat and GB news musings. Well, it's not as if he's Joan Collins, is it? Or even Julian Clary. He's somebody who used to read the news, or perhaps the GB News people didn't quite sort out the marketing. The marketing, after all, can make or break even the most charming of chats. Yet there remains something defiant about Holmes. He posts videos, he records podcasts, he insists he'll have a life in spite of his immobility. There's resilience even tinged with sadness. But it's not Quentin Crisp, is it? He is, in many ways, the embodiment of a generation of broadcasters now struggling to locate their place in the ecosystem, rather than finding his place with himself. Because in the end, that's all you've got to live with, as Quentin Crisp would say. So what now for Eamonn Holmes? A return to some sort of quiet retreat, or perhaps a broadcasting renaissance, the final frontier for every public figure who no longer sells out in the theatre? Whatever the future holds, the Holmes story is not without its instructive elements. In an age of digital disruption, public scrutiny, and the slow erasure of legacy fame, it reminds us how quickly media giants can become footnotes, cancelled not for cause, but for irrelevance. Still, he has his walking frame, his microphone, his will to carry on, and perhaps for some, that's enough. Maybe that's enough.